Open up the shirt.
Tim, tell me about your wife again.
What is that?
No,
what does your shirt say,
I
Roman?
clicked this specifically for that. No,
I went outside once. The graphics are not that good.
No,
I approve.
J'approve. Yeah, that was your.
So wait,
guys'
we're
week.
recording now?
We are recording now. Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, cool.
I thought you might want to. Like, I thought you would have cut that with my smart ass comment, but okay.
No, that's in.
Hey, we're back.
Hey,
We're back.
It's been 2
How
weeks.
how many days have we missed of
Dos.
Those weeks.
What? Yeah, it's
podcast
2
time
weeks.
at this point?
We're on week 3,
Mm-hmm.
ending the dry spell.
Let's make this a little smaller. That looks
Set
good.
curiosity,
That
can you
looks...
guys hear anything in the background on mine?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
Perfect. I'm
Zero.
Just making sure that
Beautiful.
Actually, the movie is fairly loud, and it's just on the other side of that door, and I can hear it. But I'm just making.
Oh,
sure
shit.
you
Welcome
guys-
to the family.
Yeah, what movie are they watching?
They are watching Encanto.
Of course.
Oh,
they are.
really?
My daughter refuses to watch it.
Really?
We've been trying to get her to watch it. She refuses. I don't know why
Respect to your
though.
daughter.
But she loves
Because
Luca.
it's
Luca is her
awful.
favorite, and she.
Luca's
I
a
know,
good movie.
I know.
It's
It's
not
funny
a great
though.
movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a good, enjoyable movie.
Yeah,
So
I tell
Luca, yeah.
the past, I'm like, when did you get a chance to talk to Muffin? Because good lord, I thought you'd be into this.
I thought this would be absolutely in your wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Dad, now do you want to hear about my my work into population control for animals no, why did I say that? It is population studying.
You're not just you've killed it, buddy.
I was
Killed it.
gonna say, where are you going with this?
What? I'm sorry to tell you, your daughter is secretly an animal eugenicist.
Yeah.
Oh, that's no bueno.
She loves animals. That would be the last thing she'd be. She could be a lot of things, but
You could love animals and still be an animal
You
eugenicist.
just want the best for that particular animal race.
oh boy,
Oh God.
maybe we should move on from this conversation.
Cut that.
Yeah.
Cut that.
And I'm gonna do something that I will not normally do. I am taking over the podcast
Wow. Uh-oh.
today. I'm taking over from Toast. So
What number is this episode?
just for tonight, this is episode 8.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is 8. Yep.
This is the Isolation Squad cast episode 8 after a couple weeks.
The Ocho.
Yeah.
The Ocho.
Thanks everybody if you're actually tuning in and watching this. We are having a lot of fun doing these things. This is episode 8 of the Squadcast. I am not a muffin. That's Roman.
Oh, what, me? This
Yeah,
guy?
you next,
Yeah.
bud.
Yeah, that's
I'm
me. That's Roman.
clockwise.
Romantic Undead. That's me. He, him.
Yeah. Toast.
Romantic and dead.
Oh, well, I mean, everybody knows me. I'm Toast. Famously
not a host
hated
with
of
the
the group.
Yeah. I'll also note that Toast and Roman both look different right now.
In which sense? Oh, because of our new setup?
Yeah, Toast's positioning is different, and the lighting in his room is different. And Roman, you look a little bit different as well.
I have a better camera and a better mic.
Is that better?
Hallelujah.
That's a little bit.
I've invested. I have a vested interest in this podcast now, boys, so don't let me down.
Yeah, let's do it. And last but most certainly not least,
Hi.
Nope.
I am Tim. Pronouns are he and him. Yeah. I have not significantly changed my recording setup.
I noticed a missing half-built PC in the background.
Oh, it's now laying on its back.
Well, that's different.
Yeah. No, it's good. The motherboard is mounted to the case. The water block is on.
Progress.
Now it's just all these little water fittings that I'm gonna snap a photo of it. Actually, my big problem right now is I've realized that I don't have a way of mounting my pump and reservoir to the radiator. So now I gotta figure out how to do that. But I gotta snap a photo of it and I'm gonna farm it out to the server to figure out how I'm gonna route all the hoses. That's
See,
gonna be a fun,
Tim really needs to get the computer done because he really wants to play Elden Ring. That's the main driver, right, Tim?
Yeah,
it's okay.
100,
You don't have to agree.
As noted,
We know it's true.
FromSoft enthusiast Tim. Yeah, I don't give a fuck about FromSoft games. They're cool.
Tim,
I'm
do
really
we
glad
give you
that- I'm
the-
really
we
glad
had
that
two
everybody has them,
podcasts.
but, like, yeah, I know.
We had two
we- we-
podcasts
we-
I
dedicated.
sat through both of them. as the audience insert, being like, huh? What's a Souls like? Oh God, my contact.
Well, there's another one, and it just came out on Friday, and we're playing it.
Yeah, it seems like the majority of the server is, and that's great. I'm really
Probably not
glad
though.
for it.
Only like probably about 5 or 6 of them. It just
Yeah.
sounds like a majority.
Yeah, it's
Well, because we
it's
won't
the
shut up
really-
about it. That's why.
Yeah, it's the really the really
vocal
active members. Yeah, exactly.
Group, yeah.
All seem to be into it.
Even Ent and Ken.
Yeah.
Ent is a big fan of From Games, dude.
I know.
Like straight up is, yeah.
I think Ent is mad at me because I've taken a hiatus from Final Fantasy 14. He didn't. He asked me for an update. I told him I was on sabbatical, and he didn't respond. I think he's angry.
Probably.
And
It takes far more than that to upset Ent. Trust me.
He's crying. I
We
can tell.
didn't say upset. We just said he's angry. Angry is the permanent state of being.
I was gonna say that is his default setting.
he hasn't changed one iota from that. Okay, so we didn't have a specific thing that we were going to do today. So, Muffin, you were proposing a different activity for us on this podcast. What are we doing today?
Well, what we are going to do, since nobody had any particular things in mind, and this is something
hey,
I've been
I-
wanting to do for quite some time.
I suggested top 10 reasons why Tim should play Elden Ring, but I got voted down hard.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
We gotta
we really
give the
need
fans
to.
what they want. More From Software content.
We need to do a good job
Miyazaki, please
of
just pay me. Please give me more games.
doing something other than shilling for
Miyazaki.
Hidetaka Miyazaki
Yeah.
on the show. So, what we are going to do today is something I've wanted to do for a little while. Recently, you may recall from the last Isolation Squadcast we did, Ben was talking about how you end a campaign, and they were talking about the end of that campaign that was run.
Our D&D
and it-
campaign specifically.
yeah.
Yes,
the
and at
service
the end of that
yeah.
D&D campaign, the characters blew up the world, basically.
We all died.
Yeah,
There
so
was
I think we were going to talk about that, but we hadn't finished the campaign yet. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
Hmm,
haven't
that's right.
discussed that on the
Oh.
podcast yet, but this is a perfect
Let's-
transition because
let's give
the
a-
game
yeah, let's give a
has
quick
ended,
recap.
and we can give the
Yeah.
quick recap. So go ahead.
Well, I was not in the game for its ending,
Oh.
so
No,
One of y'all.
Tim and I were present.
yeah.
Yeah.
give the
I didn't
recap.
play in the campaign at all, so
We can give the Coles Notes version of it, but it was a heavily modified version of Rime of the Frost Maiden, which Ben took a lot of creative.
Recap what that
liberties.
is in case people don't know D&D. Like,
No,
No.
you can fucking Google
Alright.
it.
okay, fine.
Hey,
there you go, Tim.
It's a campaign that is pre-written by Wizards of the Coast, and it's
For Dungeons and Dragons.
for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, whatever. So the whole thing was that Ben added some like real eldritch horror shit going on.
Yeah.
And one of the things was this blackened sword, which my character Weimer the Warforged picked up, and it like body horror amalgamated with my mechanical form, became part of my arm. We're gonna skip a whole bunch of like the interim stuff, but towards the end we discovered that this sword was actually a shard from a larger weapon. And we were trying to figure out how to disable the weapon or to protect the realm from this device or from this entity. We didn't really know what it was until we found it. But the problem is that I have a remarkably low will save and a remarkably high strength save. So I was compelled to bring the shard back in contact with the weapon. All of my friends did their level best to hold me back.
Some of your friends.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
Some of them notably did nothing, despite the urgings of my character.
Please,
They just
help.
stood there.
well, let's just see what happens.
Yeah, I know.
I had some heroic rolls on those strength saves when I really didn't want it to. So
Well, it was looking good at first, because so my character, who is a rogue with a low strength, well, low-ish, tried to restrain you and succeeded a couple of
yeah,
times.
you were able to drag me almost.
I was
out of the
we
door.
were almost out of line of sight, but then for the last roll, one of our other characters, who had a much higher strength, I called him in. I said, "Hey, can you help? You're stronger than me. You know, bring it in." And of course, no sooner does he come in to help with his higher rolls that we were unable to overcome your opposed roll, your opposed strength roll. So you overpowered us, broke free of our grip, and were able to rejoin with what was it called? The spindle, I think we called it.
Yeah.
This eldritch artifact that was emanating its will, overpowering yours. And upon rejoining with the artifact, it essentially generated a black hole, which swallowed up our characters and half of Faerun.
Yeah.
And thus, Tim has earned the new name Tim the World Ender.
Yeah, Weimer the World Ender.
Weimer the World Ender.
No. Now we're calling you Tim the World Ender.
It's just Tim the World Ender.
Okay.
Well, if I can do this over multiple campaigns, then maybe I'll have earned Tim the World Ender. But currently, Weimer the World Ender, because that's the only one that's done that yet. But
so far,
Eli will do that in our next campaign. So anyway, Muffin, that leads us to our now shattered realm, and you are suggesting a one-shot.
Shattered Realm would be a great name for a book series.
Is it though? Doesn't that already exist?
That's actually what I am calling this.
Yeah,
literally, that is what I'm calling this game in my head. Is the Shattered Realms, because it's the Forgotten Realms, and the Forgotten Realms have been shattered by this thing. So they are the Shattered Realms. That is literally what I have been calling it in my head. So well played to everyone.
Sick.
So basically, at the end of that game, a massive sphere of annihilation was set off, and it carved out this, just destroyed the 10 towns. It destroyed the north of Faerun. And that led to an interesting conversation on the Discord about what are the consequences of this? Because I was like, Ben, consider that you've just set off the ultimate climate apocalypse. And I drew analogies to the Siberian Traps, which happened. That was a major supervolcanic eruption that took place in Siberia. And you may be familiar with that happening in history, if you're at all familiar with geological time, because that's when the end Permian mass extinction happened. It is now also called the Great Dying. It is the most terrible mass extinction that has ever occurred in history. And so, Ben, that's basically what you've done here, because you've just carved out all of this mantle. There's this perfectly semi-spherical, carving into the ground. If it didn't pierce the mantle and just automatically let stuff out, that would make the pressure so weak, or so strong with the barrier so weak, that it would just erupt everywhere. What's going to happen as a result of that? And
the world forms again.
Well, one of the immediate things we said was, all that magma that rushes out is suddenly going to rush into the Underdark, because the Underdark connects to the north like that. So basically, the whole Underdark is now uninhabitable, and everything there has to flee to the surface. So
is
as
this
one,
a massive
shoehorn in
crisis,
for Ben's racist thoughts on the Drow and trying to kill them in the Duergar through Tim's poor willpower?
Weimers. This is for role playing.
Or he's
Role-playing.
anticipating them and allow them opportunities to come to the surface and rejoin the world. Whatever.
Unification.
But so I have also been listening to Friends at the Table for some time, and they played a game recently before Songfiel called The Ground Itself. And I thought it would be a whole lot of fun for us to do that for this as a group exercise to just see what happens to Faerun after all is said and done. So I sent you all the PDF. It's in the Padcost channel.
Got it. Got it.
And you really only need to start by going. You can go to page 7 if you want to, but really, page 7 says we're going to pick a setting collectively. We've already decided what that setting is.
Hooray!
Faerun. The timeline is on page 8. Now, the timeline is something that you can either roll for, that's what the D6 is for, or it's something that we can decide upon collectively, because these stories can be told in terms of days, weeks, years, decades, centuries, or millennia. I figured that we would probably want to go with the decades or centuries setup, because we're talking about, what is essentially going to be kind of a climate disaster, and how does the world adapt to that? We could do that in terms of millennia. Centuries even feels a little much to me. I think decades would be a good way to do it myself.
Like the tenuous stabilizing after the event, right? Okay.
That's what we're really shooting for, in my opinion, on this. Now, this is not my game. This is our game. So if y'all disagree, we can actually roll for it and just say we'll only accept 1 through 3 as decades and 4 through 6 as centuries. If we want to do that, we just do decades.
No, I see no need to do that.
Yeah.
No, a decade sounds fine to me. So
Yeah.
what do you envision? So when it says decades, is this supposed to mean like the story will take place over decades, or the story
Yes.
begins decades after the initial incident?
The story will take place over decades. The
All right.
story is basically going to take place immediately.
Oh.
And when
So
I say
then-
immediate, I mean like literally, like
After the inciting
this
incident.
carving has just happened.
Got it.
What happens? And then
So-
eventually we're going to roll a die, and it's going to tell us how many decades into the future we go.
Maybe we should roll for it, because here's the thing, and I think this is an interesting, based on the fact that if we're talking about it from a purely like, if we're talking about trying to pick it up after a mass event like this,
Mhm.
I think there's a couple of different ways this could end up going. And I think it could be potentially interesting depending on what we pick. If you pick decades, you're talking about changes, societal changes that are going to be
Mhm.
very obvious that we could potentially try and hone in on to see how they're dealing with the conflict. Centuries or generationally, you're starting to talk about bigger, but you'll be able to see more of kind of the swath of how things are going overall. If you hit millennia, then, I mean, Jesus, we would just basically wipe off all
Yeah,
of it.
that would be the end of every, like, all the races would be changing. There'd be so much
There's like
there.
evolution happening and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like,
I do kind of think maybe rolling for it could be interesting, because then we
okay.
wouldn't be locked in, or hopefully we wouldn't be forced into thinking about it one way or the other.
Okay, I'm open to it.
Sure. So let's do this. Welcome. This is going to be our dice roller. Google has a nice little handy app for it. So we will
Hooray.
say on a 1 through 3, it'll be decades, and on 4 through 6, it will be centuries.
Go.
Or not.
Doesn't it also have a D2? Can
Come
you just flip
on.
a coin?
There we
There you
go.
go. 6.
We're working on
centuries.
centuries.
Cool.
Scales of centuries, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, what is now going to happen if you go down to page 9? I've already dealt you all hands of cards. Okay.
Okay.
And we will be going basically, for me, it's going to be, we can start with somebody else because I don't want to be taking the reign on that thing. But from my perspective, we can go RomUnd, Tim, toast me, RomUnd, Tim, toast me, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
So basically, we start by saying each player is dealt cards from the face cards stack in a circle until no cards are left. I've already done that. Each player sits down one card at a time and answers the question associated with that card detailed below. I am going to message each one of you your individual cards.
Okay.
This
All
is about
Do we get
as...
Do we get to pick when we like play them or discuss them, or is it
Yes,
gonna be...
you get to play them and pick them when you feel ready to do so on your turn. All right, let's see. Where's Roman?
I'm here.
Message for Roman.
I got a message. Hmm? Did you send it?
I'm typing it up right now.
Give him a hot minute. Jesus.
Sorry.
So if I say J, Q, or K, that's Jack, Queen, or King.
Yeah.
Mhm.
D, H, C, and S, diamonds, hearts, clubs, and spades.
Oh, is that what that
Those will be the cards. Yes,
That
those will be
is
the cards that you
quite
have.
the
Roman,
cipher.
I just sent you your cards that you were dealt.
All right. Okay.
Post. I've got to get back over here. Let me message Toast directly. Toast. You are going to have that one. And that one. There are your 3.
Cool.
Now,
And
I'm
I've got
presuming
one.
that. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm presuming like these questions that are being asked are questions that need to be answered as of the inciting incident. So not like a century later, like as of that moment. Is that correct?
Do this.
Yes, this is it doesn't have to be that exact moment. We can be a little bit flexible with the time on some of this because we're operating in terms of decades.
All right.
And we can also go
Centuries.
forward in time, and we can also go backwards in time. I don't see any reason why we would want to go backwards in time because we're
Right,
interested in
it's
what
an-
happens after this. But
and also it's an established setting, so
right.
Mhm.
So I have sent you all your individual cards. What's going to happen is we're going to go around the table, starting with Roman.
Okay.
Roman is going to pick one of his cards that he would like to play,
Mhm.
and he will answer that question.
Very good. All right, give me just a quick second to decide which one I like best to start with.
I like that you can highlight in this PDF. Makes it much easier.
Okay, I'll start with the King of Hearts. And the question is, what stories are told in or about this place? This place, I'm presuming, is the spot, the crater, the giant crater that's carved a chunk out of Faerun, right? That's what we're agreed on. Does it have legends or myths? Does it have religion? Awesome. So, let's. So stories.
I will be taking notes, by the way.
Great, excellent. So stories, I think we can start pretty easily with. I'm going to say, it was known that a group of adventurers, a number of whom were followers of Cord, were known to have gone into what was the name of that cave that we went into?
Caves of Hunger.
The Caves of Hunger, in pursuit of a vague mission, and within days of their departure, this cataclysm took place. As a result, the followers of Cord and Cord himself are now reviled. Cord, who used to be known as a good god, an adventurer god, is now reviled in society. And the stories are that he betrayed the races of mortals for unknown reasons and nearly destroyed Faerun as a result. So the legend is that Cord has turned against the people of Faerun, and followers of Cord are now being hunted down and exiled and and ostracized as a result. Of course, the remaining followers of Cord's, those who survived, know nothing about any of this, of course. And I'm going to even go so far as to say that Cord has been silent on all of this. So Cord himself, the god, has not responded to pleas from his followers. He has been silent, and as a result, many of his followers who remain have become despondent and have started to give in to despair as a result. But for the most part, this was all Cord's fault. The followers of Cord are hated and blamed for what took place, and cultists who follow Cord, their temples have been destroyed, ransacked, attacked, what have you, and followers are on the run. That's what I'm going with.
Roman, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Would you say that Cord almost kind of begins to feel like a freak on a leash?
There you go.
Womp womp womp.
So there you go.
Oh,
what do you guys
sorry,
think?
no, that was corn. Sorry, right.
No, there's nothing about what we think about it. The person who answers the questions, like everybody else, we can contribute ideas, and the person who asks the question can say, I'll solicit some thoughts from this. What do y'all think about this idea, and run with it. But you are the one who gets to ultimately decide what happens. You are the arbitrator of your card always, and you can say either I want input or I don't need input. Also note that when someone else plays a card later, they are welcome not to modify your story, but to take it to the next step.
Yeah, of course.
Now, my question was initially made in jest, but if we do consider it seriously for a second, can we instead say that he almost takes on the mantle of Khorne from 40K, and he almost turns into basically like the rage god
of death and destruction, sort of?
Well, the question was stories, legends, and myths. Religion.
So that's
I didn't.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, so there might be opportunities for us to explicitly answer that question later on in the game.
Cool.
Yeah. So right now I'm sticking on what the myths are. As far as Cord himself, I haven't ventured there.
Sorry, that's kind of what I meant. More like the myths. People start to view him more as, in that sense, Korn from 40K, but whatever. Doesn't matter. It's good.
As a destructor god. Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, they see him now as being evil. That's
as an
clearly
evil
look, his
bringer
people
of
destroyed
calamity.
the world.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, his locus in the world, the way that he affects the world, is no longer, modifying people's adventures. It's just destruction.
Right. So there you go.
All right, perfect. So that was the King of Hearts, or I believe the King of Hearts. Tim,
hi.
Your turn.
It's my turn. Okay, so for the listeners at home, I am displaying my selection on screen, and I've got a copy of the sheet currently full screened. I think that we'll probably be looking at the Queen of Clubs for my card. So, what was the greatest moment in this place's history? The emergence of a cycle of cicadas? Probably not. And this is something that we did talk about in the server. So, I mean, it's pretty clear that this area, like the Sphere of Annihilation, is going to be the event. But we talked about a number of cataclysmic events that happened like on a semi-local basis. So I think honing in on what that would look like to anyone in the surrounding areas. And one of the ones that I suggested in the server was when that Sphere of Annihilation went off, it would have annihilated basically everything within that sphere, which would have caused a massive area of vacuum or low pressure, causing a great wind to be like swept towards the center of the annihilation, which is not what one would normally expect, right? So even in the surrounding years and decades, like the forests and everything in that area would be flattened probably within a few kilometers of the epicenter, and all flattened.
Yeah, it's sort of like the reverse of a volcanic eruption in that case, or a bomb going off. Like instead of everything being blown out, it's all sucked. And actually, if you watch videos, that does happen following massive bombs going off. There's a shockwave out, and then the air gets sucked back in.
Oh yeah,
but this is just all the air sucking straight in.
And really, I guess there would be a reverberation afterwards, but everything would be flattened in towards the epicenter, almost like I don't know, like a waypoint or a sign, like everything bowing in towards that central piece of destruction, which would likely be possibly taken up by like cultists or whatever that would probably be viewing that as like a sign or a symbol. Maybe the people who are still enticed by Cord and his power would be really interested in that particular aspect of like the local geography. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of what I'm thinking of in the area. So
excellent. So, I mean, as you said, there's a lot of things that we posited that could have happened here, and I love that was one that never even occurred to me. I was just thinking about like the consequences of the magma now rushing into the Underdark and all of the volcanic fumes and everything being thrown into the atmosphere and all the ash and stuff. That's like
there's all that stuff too.
I think the crater would have filled with water.
Potentially. But we also do know for sure that the spine of the world, the mountain range that separates the north from the rest of the middle latitudes and stuff of Faerun, is like a big chunk of it is just gone. So there's like now this wind tunnel just connecting the north and the Midlands. There's so many things we could be talking about here. I love that one. It never even occurred to me to think about what happens when all of that air gets annihilated.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think so. Like realistically, like I think we can add to that one pretty easily as a group as we go. But like we talked about so many pieces of this particular one. Just the particular cards that I got. That's the only one that I can really add anything of interest to. So yeah, I think that one
right out the gate.
I'm pretty happy to just leave that one as that's a specific instance of what happened in this particular area, but pretty much what we discussed in the server, which is going to be the climate cataclysm, is going to be absolutely canon for our story.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect. I will also say too, because we're playing this a little bit differently than the game was originally designed to be played. Like we've already got this setting in mind and everything's kind of going. So some of the cards may not be quite as obvious. There'd be things like the King of Diamonds, for example, that says who or what is in power here. If you have that card, you may not. It's like, well, that doesn't really
apply
fit here as it's written. You could then say, I'm going to modify the text to say who or what immediately takes power.
Yeah.
After this goes on, something like that. You're welcome to modify it, and it's we as the group can kind of decide collectively if that's a good reinterpretation.
Yeah, I like it. Sounds good to me.
Great. Host.
Hello. Okay. So, got some weird choices here.
You love weird.
Yes,
I do love weird,
lead
but
in,
it's
lead
weird. It's weird, not in a fun weird way. It's
Maybe
weird
awkward.
in a how do I make this work kind of way.
well, talk it out and see.
So, I mean, all right, maybe let's go with this first. So I'm going to go with the Jack of Hearts first. It's kind of specifically about who lives here. What does an average person look like in this place? What do they look like? What do they wear? I mean, I'm not going to go over describing the flora and fauna. We've kind of already talked about how in kind of the aftermath of an event like this, I think there would be ecological havoc across all of the Forgotten Realms. The continent of Faerun would effectively be shattered because, well, even going off of what Tim mentioned in terms of the vacuum, the winds that would be created would effectively either destroy all of the flora and fauna, or would probably kick up enough dust to effectively kind of cloud the atmosphere.
Besides all the other things that are going to be clouding the atmosphere after
there
that
you go.
cataclysm, for sure.
But I am interested to try and think about how the different peoples of the Forgotten Realms would try and handle this. So obviously, like bunch of different races that live on the continent of Faerun as a whole. Some would definitely be better suited to dealing with a situation like this, but I think people who would probably best survive it probably would be like the Drow and the Duergar, people who are underground who are potentially somewhat covered from the instance of it. I think the average people who would end up coming out of this and continuing to survive would probably be more of the strongest. I feel like
Excuse me.
in the aftermath of this, and talking about potentially society collapsing, you're looking at very smart, very strong individuals who have access to resources, who can keep themselves going. Also, though, when you're talking about like what do they wear, if you have the atmosphere clouded in the way that I'd think it would go, the Earth would probably, or Faerun would probably be experiencing almost like a nuclear winter. So,
well, that's actually an interesting aspect of playing this from a centuries perspective instead of decades. From an immediate sense, there would be a wintering kind of effect, but as centuries go on, this actually can lead to truly runaway global warming.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because of all the greenhouse gases that are being released into the atmosphere by all of the supervolcano doing its thing.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean it can go either direction. And
so really, at first, like the population change the effect of the population change is going to be a lot of weaker, smaller races or people are going to die off. Those that can survive the cold easier are going to be better. And there's going to be a lot of vying for resources, so it's going to end up being smarter, stronger groups that kind of either come up from underground or are able to take shelter for long enough to survive the initial impact.
Also, real quick, guys, in case some nerds out there yell at us, the name of the planet that we're dealing with is actually Toril. Faerun, yeah, Faerun is just a continent, but the planet is Toril. So just in case that wasn't clear.
And the Forgotten Realms is the universe.
Yeah.
That encompasses it.
So there you go. Just wanted to get that out there before we get our heads bit off.
I want to get brigaded by the nerds.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
one
interrupt.
who didn't know that though, so thank you, Roman.
I looked it up. I was like, wait a second, Faerun's a continent, is it? But I didn't remember the name of the world, so
planet, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
didn't I say Faerun was the continent? Didn't I talk about the continent?
You may have
talked about Faerun, but I don't know.
Yeah, you may have, but I think we were using it interchangeably. Yeah. So I just wanted to make it clear that the planet is Toril, Faerun is a continent. Anyway, sorry, please proceed.
Yeah, that's good. Anything more to add on that, Toast?
No, I think that's the best I can do. I've mumbled enough.
Well, that's all right. So, okay, my turn. I will play the Jack of Spades for this one. The Jack of Spades is, what are the threats to this place? Are these threats to the materiality of the place or to the people that live in it? I am going to say that there is, again, we've talked about a lot of the consequences of this, but there's one that I'm also very interested in, and that is what happens to the gods as a result of this. So what are the threats to this place now, this place being Faerun, that happen as a big result of this? We could talk about a lot of them, but here's the one I'm going to say. We've established, the magma coming up and flushing out all of the creatures of the Underdark onto the surface. But because there's now these ash clouds coming up into the sky is being, blotted out basically across at least a big chunk of Faerun. So the Underdark dwelling creatures actually don't care that they are now on the surface. It's like, well, we lost all of that, but we know how to deal with terrible stuff. So we're good now.
Tuesday.
Yeah, this is just another day for me. So what happens as a result of this? I mean, you have, the light and dark are suddenly, butting heads with one another in ways that they're not supposed to be. Hot and cold are butting heads in ways that they're not supposed to be. The gods of winter, the gods of the Underdark, they're all suddenly finding themselves in a position where they have a lot more power. And what does that mean? Well, that means that there is a war that is starting in the pantheon of Faerun, and lines are being drawn, and the various religions are all having their people called to their holiest of places, their centers of power and authority, to start talking about these messages they're getting. And sometimes it's not messages from, sometimes it's the avatars themselves coming down of the gods themselves and saying, here's what's up. And I imagine the worst of it is probably the embodied, Lulth's avatar comes to Faerun and says, this is our time now. It's time for us to show the surface dwellers our true strength. And the rest of the surface dwellers are having to say, we don't want that. And so what gods are going to align with that? I'm thinking I can't remember hardly any of their actual names. It's been so long since I played the Forgotten Realms, but the gods of winter, I'm going to be yeah, okay, I'm going to side with the Drow on this one. Let's do this. So you're going to have these teams, at least two, that hot and cold, light and dark kind of situation.
Stratification of the gods looking for a larger struggle.
Right.
Yeah.
And so starting off immediately after this, the greatest threat, it hasn't happened yet, is this war among the gods, which is going to be taking place on at least two different levels. One at the level of the gods themselves, they're head to head in ways that we can't fathom and the people who worship them can't fathom. And then at the level of the worshippers, big holy crusades against one another.
Don't the gods exist on other planes of existence? They're not, none of them technically are on the continent of Faerun itself normally, right?
They
normally
get their
exist.
power from.
They're invested in it, though. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
So there are arguments that some of the gods of Faerun are also gods by other names in other places, and that's up for interpretation on everything. But I'm thinking of the gods as being this is the Faerun pantheon, and I like to think of them more as it's more interesting to think of it as they draw their power from Toril and Faerun, And if their worshippers get snuffed out, and if their world changes so much that they don't have power anymore, then that
weakens them.
threatens their existence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there is a selfishness, and like imagine like what does a selfish
Oh, so we're
god
basically going
of
American gods.
yeah, what does a
Sort of.
selfish god of agriculture look like? A god of love and life and all these things who suddenly has to fight for his or her existence. What are they going to look like now?
You know, what does a god
I
of
don't know.
compassion look like when they're backed into a corner?
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's what I think the threat is. I'm going to
Jack Jesus just descending onto the battlefield.
Are you suggesting Jesus was not jacked? Everyone knows.
Everyone's seen Rick and
He
Morty.
was an
That guy
alpha
had wicked
male.
cum gutters.
Yeah. Woo! PG-13, gentlemen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there we go. There's my answer. The battle of the
way I wanted
gods,
it to.
so to speak. Lines are being drawn. Holy people are summoned to their centers. The gods are planning a full-on either invasion or defense, fight back. There is a holy war, not a holy war just in the sense of two religions going it, but a truly divine war.
All right. Awesome.
Love it.
All right, that's it.
Back to me.
Yes.
All right.
Are we in the next century then? Is that what we're? Is
Yeah.
that how this?
Nope. We're these all 12 of these cards are played following the aftermath of that thing.
So point of order. Were we each supposed to get a different card then?
We're each supposed to get 3 cards.
Yeah, and those 3
Yes.
cards are supposed to be different than the other people's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, one of my 3 is also the King of Hearts, which RomUnd already did. So
Uh-oh.
And I mistype things.
So I'll
I
just
mistyped
need
things.
one other card.
Okay, well, does anyone have the King of Spades then?
I do.
Okay. And does anyone have the King of Diamonds then?
I
Then it
guess
must be the King of
that one's-
Diamonds.
Must be that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you can have the King of Diamonds then. Sorry, I guess I screwed that up somehow. I don't know how I did
just wanted
that,
to make
but
sure that I was understanding this correctly. For whatever reason, I thought we were going to be redealing cards or something, and that doesn't make.
No, we're going to go through all of them.
Yeah,
It was just.
yeah.
Yeah.
My
There's
apologies.
4 of us, and we each get 3 cards.
Yeah. All right.
You did it.
I did it.
Hooray!
Proud
Oh,
of you.
hang on. Our scrivener is
I
messing
just have to get my
stuff.
fan on. It's really hot here right now. So sorry for the
right.
confusion there.
How hot is it?
Okay, my turn.
It's getting hot in here, so take off your sweatshirt. That's not
All right.
hot.
Fine. Okay, I'll go with Jack of Diamonds. What is this place named or called? Who named it and for what reason? I'm going with, continuing with my theme of everyone hating Cord now, this giant chunk of earth that has been taken out of Toril, I am dubbing the Betrayer's Maw. And it was named by enemies, like churches that are aligned, have been historically aligned against Cord. I don't know who those are offhand. You might, Muffin.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I can write in generalities right now, so that's fine.
What about you, Tim? Do you know who Cord's classical enemies are?
Hell no.
No, okay. We can look it up.
I'm the babe in the cradle when it comes to this.
Yeah, but your character had an affinity for Cord, didn't he? Or was that just
that
was just Disco
and Nolan.
and Nolan? Yeah. Anyways, well, I'm assuming he had enemies because every god has enemies. I don't know who they were offhand, but I'm going to go with once the rumors started spreading that it was disciples of Cord that were responsible for this cataclysm, the temples of Cord's traditional enemies took it as a great opportunity to continue to besmirch his name and fan this rhetoric essentially, and so they started spreading the rumor of naming this cataclysm, this hole that remains, as the Maw of the Betrayer, the Betrayer's Maw, and basically so that it's forever associated with Cord, who is now called the Betrayer, and anyone who discusses this hole essentially will be invoking Cord's new status in the Pantheon.
It would probably be Lolth.
Possibly, yeah.
According to the D&D wiki, his main enemies are Tiamat, the
Sure,
dragon god, the evil dragon god, and Bane, the evil god of conquest and tyranny, for example.
Excellent. That works.
That's wicked.
But I'm sure there are possibly others that, because
I mean, Loth would totally like jump on board with that too. But of course,
I mean, and it's not like Tiamat's gonna be able to do much because she's still locked in the in Avernus.
Fine, but her followers are still there. She still has followers and dragons.
Well, yeah. I just think I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah. So okay. So Cord is considered, like a god of courage and strength and battle. Generally speaking. So anything kind of opposed to that is going to, kind of aligned against that is going to be particularly.
Totally.
Like,
and as a result, those churches are probably. And those churches, I would presume, are probably now going to be experiencing a surge in adherence as a result of this. So apostates of Cord flocking over to those churches and other disillusioned members of those churches moving on. And even gods that are typically allied with Cord may turn their back to him and his followers as well. So, but there you go. But my job was just the name, so I've made my submission, and I won't presume to go any further until it's my turn again.
Fair enough.
Right.
So that means I'm
perfect. That means you are up.
Cool. So then I might as well roll right into the King of Diamonds that I've been given.
Wait, sorry, but Tim, before you jump on that, I just want to get one more nerdy thing out of the way here,
please,
because we will probably get yelled at again. After looking into Cord is not actually a Faerunian deity. It's from Greyhawk.
But it was our like the people in our
I know.
Our camp. So to explain to the viewers, you're largely correct, and you're banging on your keyboard and you're shrieking is
largely correct.
However,
is right. The best correct.
Yeah, the best type of correct. However, in our campaign, 2 of our members were Cord adherents, and because they were a part of this apocalypse, is likely going to have. And they were speaking Cord's name all throughout the 10 towns.
Oh yeah, they loved Cord.
Our good work, good and noble work.
But if he's from Greyhawk, don't all the Greyhawk gods essentially have an equivalent in the Forgotten Realms? Essentially, isn't there like one-to-one?
Yeah, so there is an equivalent in the Forgotten Realms to that. So this is the one I was originally thinking of, which is why I was kind of struggling with this. Like, I don't remember Cord from the Pantheon.
Yeah.
I remember Tempest. Tempest would probably be the closest analogy in the Forgotten Realms to it. So Tempest is the god of, generally, again, god of battle and war, not in like the strategic sense, but literally in the boots on the ground. Let's get bloody and do what we have to do sort of perspective. His enemies in the Forgotten Realms include Elistray, who is the only good drow goddess, I should say. She's a goddess of the moon. And
in the name of the moon, she will punish us.
Oh God, no. She's opposed to him. She calls him
that
the Butcher.
anime.
Soon, or Sune, depending how you want to pronounce it. She's the goddess of beauty. She hates Tempest for destroying things that are beautiful.
Oh, hey, that's interesting.
And then there is, of course, the goddess Eldath, who is the goddess of peace.
So, do we want to go with Cord being like an aspect of Tempest? Because they do that sometimes.
I think it's cooler because it does make it a lot easier for Cord then to become purely seen as an evil god in Faerun, because if your party is effectively the only people who know of this god's existence by this name, and he didn't have tons of adherents throughout the continent, then it's easy. They could just be like, oh, well, they must have just been mistaken. He's clearly a destruction god. Moving on.
Moving on in a post-apocalyptic scenario, but yes. Moving on as best as you can when the world's been destroyed.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Tim.
Yeah. So then we are going to roll smoothly into the King of Diamonds. Who or what is in power here? Is it a ruler, an apex predator, a series of laws that govern society, or the weather? So I think that it's interesting to establish these church structures and hierarchies. So I do think that Tempest or Cord is going to have a surge in power, because I think as much as he's maligned in the like the general locus, like, or in general discussion, it's clear that he's powerful, right? Or he has the appearance of power. So that's what I mean, like with these trees folding over, being potentially a beacon for cultists and apostates from other gods who maybe like secretly have changed over. He's likely more powerful than he ever has been. But just in secret.
I really like that.
Sure. Yeah, that's cool. Because you're not wrong. Absolutely. Some people be like, this guy destroyed the world. Let's join his team.
Everything, like, they all see it's like, this is the ultimate sign of Kord's conquest over the world. Yeah, Look what Kord hath wrought.
And totally the flip side would also be true. It would galvanize faith in his
Tempest.
in
so he gets it from both
opposing side, and that's likely the one that is going to take the larger societal main viewpoint, right? So those are going to be the ones that actually have like the churches and the cathedrals and large religious public religious adherents and are going to be doing like most of the crusading and the and that sort of thing.
There's something to think about too, that if we're talking about a god of battle, and I said, the big threat is that the battle lines are being drawn not only between people and religions, but the gods themselves. I mean, who stands to suddenly develop a ton of unexpected power as a result of this? The god of battle.
Yeah.
And now, conflict.
Yeah.
On this topic,
skulls for the skull throne.
Yeah. But on this topic, do we want to actually answer the question of what actually is happening with Kord? Now we're talking about his followers and adherents, but what about the actual deity himself? Like I mentioned earlier that, he hasn't responded to his adherents, but do we want to review that? Like,
well, I would say let's hold that in reserve for now.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
It's like who's in power situation. Like, I don't know if the gods are necessarily in power in the region, but there is going to be like a strong undercurrent of like, so there's the forward-facing public religious power of what was the opposing one to Kord?
Eldad, the god of peace.
Yeah, or
depends which one.
The new drow.
Elistray, the goddess of the moon.
Yeah, like I kind of like that there's like this positive aspect that all of a sudden gets like a new adherence because of like this darkness that's overtaken or whatever. So anyway, like there can be a number of these things that are kind of like maybe coalescing into a larger religious thing.
Sorry. From that, if we get a bunch of shit that flows up into the atmosphere and ends up creating the nuclear winter, people wouldn't be able to see the moon either, right?
Hey, good point.
That's a good point.
That could be a.
No, that's not to say that I don't think it's true. It's more of just like I wonder how that would affect followers of the goddess of the moon.
Yeah.
Right.
It could totally affect.
There's some interesting questions or an interesting idea that I think might come out of that, because with all of the drow being pushed out from the Underdark, the drow Elistray is almost exclusively worshipped by good aligned drow. And not all of those live on the surface. That probably would imagine most of them worship her in secret, in the Underdark and pine for her loving glow at night and all of this.
And then they emerge to the surface only to find her obscured. And then they're like, what the fuck?
Here's our chance.
Basically, this is a complete crisis of faith for literally everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody basically is going to have a crisis of faith right now. That's why I said that's the biggest threat. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good thoughts, Tim.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, that was toast actually.
Yeah, exactly. Who are in power is largely going to be an undercurrent or a rebellious cultist faction of Kord followers and a large public-facing religious sect that are going to be opposing him, that are taking part in the power vacuum, however we decide.
And what about the drow? Like, are they raiding? Are they establishing a foothold? What do you think about them?
I would defer to you guys. Like, I don't know the nature of drow. I just know that it's like, it used to be that they're all bad, and then it's kind of understood now that they're not all bad.
They're still mostly all bad. Okay. Most of them.
Well, it's not inherently bad. It's because of their societal structures and Lolth's influence over the society, forcing the matriarchs to force everybody to do terrible things.
Also, they're being kept underground constantly. They don't have,
There's a bunch of horrible monsters down there that they continuously have to contend with. Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, they would be
Nurtured to be evil, not nature.
And
Yeah,
would
I
they be,
suppose.
were they a powerful faction down below the earth? Like
I mean,
The
there's
I think so,
Drow or
right?
the
nobody
or
else
Hellish
under the
Race?
earth.
and
Mhm.
okay,
It's them and the Druagar and
Yeah.
monsters.
And
That's
the
it.
Illithids, arguably. But the Drow are the number one power of the Underdark, yeah.
okay. I mean,
Cool.
I can't possibly imagine that they wouldn't be like a significant power.
Now, are we going to address in the Forgotten Realms, like Drow's equipment doesn't work in sunlight still, right? That's
Aha,
still true, isn't it?
But
Nuclear winter, remember?
nuclear
Well, that's I was going to bring that
Lots.
up. Is that going to make a difference? Because if so, that's going to help with the Drow a lot with their emergence. Because one of the main things that kept them underground was that their equipment would disintegrate when it was exposed to sunlight.
Interesting.
I mean, if
So-
nothing else, it would give them the opportunity to come above ground and figure out how to fix that situation for themselves before the nuclear winter is potentially over.
Well, that's a question that could be raised.
or
Yeah,
if,
and Lolth is there. She'll help.
or if they win the entire fight and basically annihilate everybody else, and then the only faction left, even if the nuclear winter goes away and they don't make any changes to their equipment, then if the dust settles, literally, and all their equipment turns into additional dust, then
new nuclear winter.
it might not matter.
Yeah, all the nuclear winter wasn't caused by the cataclysm; it was caused by all the Drow coming up at once and all their stuff turning to dust at the same time, blotting out the sun.
Contributes to it. All that carbon, all that additional carbon that goes into the air, shreds the ozone.
Yeah. So I also want to layer in that Roman suggestion that like the series of laws that govern society, it is an openly hostile towards the Cord adherents and whatever. So
Openly hostile to who?
Cord and their adherents or whatever, like that's going to be like blasphemy to talk about him in open in open discussion or whatever. So
His name becomes a curse.
Yeah.
Cord's
Now,
breath.
Did we decide that Cord and Tempest are the same or no?
I think we're functionally
Yeah, we're calling them functionally the same thing.
Yeah, I think we're
I made a note up here that Cord is in Greyhawk, not the Forgotten Realms, but we're saying Cord is an aspect of Tempest or vice versa, so it fits.
Everyone's okay with that? Yeah.
Yep.
sound off in the
Cool.
comments if you're not okay with that,
Right.
where I will block you.
Easy
All right,
there, Ben.
toast.
I know I'm feisty today.
Hey.
Hey.
All right. What you got for us,
Okay.
Toast?
Well, you know what? Let's just piggyback off this and go. I'm going to go with King of Spades. To be honest, it's a lot of stuff that we've already talked about, but obviously, like the point of contention, things that are going to be fought over. Definitely, like people are going to need resources. What little remains of food and water and any other natural resources, weaponry that still works. Knowledge is potentially going to be fought over, and that's not only necessarily like religious knowledge, but it's also practical knowledge.
Knowledge of what actually happened.
Well, is that, but also just knowledge on how to do basic stuff, right? Like how do you keep a city functioning? How do you keep supply chains working?
How do you grow?
How do you keep population
for a while?
going?
What about refugees?
Hmm?
I was gonna say, what about refugees?
There you go.
That's actually something I wanted to bring up during Toast's last answer about that the races underground are going to be the ones that kind of are most inured to what's happening. And I was like, think about the refugees though. All of these races and people suddenly coming and pounding on the doors of the dwarven strongholds in the mountains and under the ground that weren't hit by the magma flows of the Great Sphere. There's some cool opportunities there.
Also, do we want to touch on like what's left of the Sword Coast? What's left of the central towns? Like how far reaching is this thing exactly?
I don't remember if we discussed the size of the sphere of annihilation.
Yeah, we didn't really go into that detail.
But it absolutely did reach the
Well, that's the thing, right? Like even if the cities themselves aren't necessarily destroyed. You're talking about the panic that's going to ensue after.
Oh yeah.
And like,
Oh yeah. There's no doubt about any of that. I was just curious to know, like, how exactly big is the maw? Like, how far reaching was it exactly? I mean, yes, it's going to affect the entire world. I agree.
I wasn't in the game, so I don't know.
No, well, we didn't just. Well, Ben originally said that the whole world was swallowed, but then it was afterwards where we were bullshitting about the game that we were like, well, what if it wasn't the whole world? What if it was just part of it? And then, that could really be a fun follow-up campaign, which is where we are now. So we kind of retconned it. Originally, it was all of Toril that was swallowed, but we retconned it into being just a section of it. But we didn't determine specifically how big the disaster was. So maybe we can do that now.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, to the point of the rest of it, though, to just hone in on answering my question, which is that they're going to be divided on points of religion as well as what they think is necessarily most important. They're going to be divided on how resources and everything else, how knowledge should be distributed amongst people. And then obviously there's going to be more fights over people's safety and security, or over their religious beliefs, or over their access to resources.
Of course, yeah, 100%.
So,
sorry, Muffin, real quick, you want a map of Toril? That's just a map of Faerun.
Well, this is all I'm going for, because this is the area that. Yeah, this is all I'm really worried about. Okay. Because the game was taking place generally up here in the coldest parts of Icewind Dale, where the 10 towns are. Mm-hmm. And according to Ben, it knocked out the spine of the world. So at the bare minimum, we're talking about a sphere that is something like this.
Yeah.
So like Mithril Hall is probably gone. Mirabar is probably gone. Luskan, if it isn't gone, it was right on the edge of it. So it's probably, but we are hitting into all this water right here. So yes, a lot of the ocean is going to pour in here as well, which means that a lot of the coastline here is going to pull down. There's going to be more islands that reveal themselves along the Moonshae Isles. The Sword Coast is going to, the whole coastline is going to look different.
Isles will become just the Moonshae Isle.
Yeah, that could absolutely happen. So yeah, that's what I've always kind of envisioned, is that just basically just this big chunk gone.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable sphere.
Roundabouts.
Yeah. Now that's not as big as I envisioned, because I'm looking at a map of Toril right now. I was thinking like almost the entire northern section of the planet was gone, which would be a lot bigger than what you're describing. Not that I'm opposed to what you're suggesting here, but like,
it's good that we define this.
Yeah, no, it is a good idea. Mm-hmm.
Because that seems like a lot.
Yeah, because that was always based on what Ben had suggested. At least in my mind, that was what it was. So
that makes sense to me.
So there we go.
Good stuff. Okay.
Stop streaming that. Good.
Close.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, so fighting over resources, especially food and water, natural resources in general, weapons, lumber, also religious and practical knowledge are going to be things that people are going to be fighting quite a bit over as well. Let me get back over to my PDF here so that I can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, excellent. Anything else to add, Toast?
No, I'm good.
All right. So the next one that I have is going to be the Queen of Hearts, let's say. So that is who or what a person, landmark, or society has been in this place the longest. How did they come to be here?
Okay, which one is that?
That's the Queen of Hearts.
Oh, Queen of Hearts. There it is.
So I am going to use this as an opportunity. It's like, so who has been here the longest? Well, we already kind of know those answers because it's the Forgotten Realms and all of this. So I'm going to sort of modify this just a little bit. Not necessarily to say who's been in the place the longest, but I want to use this as an opportunity to talk about how this race that has been here for so long, the Drow, are coming up. Mm-hmm. So again, magma suddenly starts rushing through as the super volcano erupts, just rushes through the entirety of the Underdark. Whatever cities are not just inundated in magma are going to become completely uninhabitable because of poisonous gases and temperatures just going through the roof. And everything in the Underdark has to either die or migrate up to the surface. Now, this means the Drow, the Dwergar, the Svirfneblin. It also means Svirfneblin are deep gnomes, by the way.
Cool.
And of course the Illithid as well. All many things that are considered traditionally evil suddenly up to the surface. How did they come to be here? Well, obviously they were pushed out of this out of their homes because of all of this. And there's an immediate sense of like, well, now they're going to be refugees in places, but that's not their way. They're coming up in mass unexpectedly. They're going to treat it as an opportunity to be a strike force. So they're going to come up and they are going to immediately start hammering all of the places that they can. So some of the things on that map that I was really pointing out before was like Luskin, for example, is a fairly big city. That would be like, if not gone, it would be very close to it. I want to say it was close to it, but not in it. So Luskin is now completely under Drow control. I'll also say Neverwinter. The city of Neverwinter. Let me pull that map back up because...
Yep, right on the coast.
Yep, the city of Neverwinter. Come on, open that image in a new tab again.
It would be super interesting to see what happens to the city of Waterdeep too, as the waterline recedes and the port is completely useless.
Yeah.
Interesting.
A port city that it suddenly cannot be a port city. Same thing with Baldur's Gate.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. I like that a lot.
So yeah, I'm going to say that Luskin is now completely under Drow. It's a Drow city at this point.
Sure.
Neverwinter, I'm going to say, is also under Drow control, but less because it's further south. It's further away from everything. So in sort of the immediate, like 1 or 2 years after this takes place, they'll have some opportunity to come in and start taking that place over. But there's going to be more resistance in Neverwinter at this point. But it's still ostensibly, think like occupied Berlin or something like this. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking about. That there is a distinct, like the Drow run this place, but there is a solid opposition. Or maybe not a solid, but a stalwart,
resistance,
scrappy resistance.
A resistance movement. Yeah.
And they are currently planning to push further south and east as possible, immediately following this all happening. That is the Queen of Hearts, and that is my answer.
Awesome.
Dope.
So, Roman, back to you.
All right. Well, my last card, I believe, is the King of Clubs. So a lot of this we've already touched on. So if there are inhabitants, what are the visions for the future that they hold? Is it a long view, a short one? So I think that should be pretty self-evident. It is a short one. That what inhabitants remain are struggling for survival, and they're living day to day to survive. While those who are on the receiving end of like Drow invasion, Drow raiding, and even just plain old banditry, of course, like even those who aren't Drow have probably fled to the hills and have engaged in various acts of banditry. So like civilization is like basically hanging on the edge here, holding on by a thread. And of course, the overall sentiment is extremely grim, apocalyptic, even I would say, including, in fact, there would actually be apocalypse cults all over the place.
It's there's a guy on the street corner holding up a cardboard sign. The end is nigh.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, but the end already happened.
Yeah, well, now the end is more nigh.
The end is very fucking nigh.
The end continues. The end isn't done.
It was nigh.
Yeah.
The end is very fucking nigh.
Yeah, but you'll still find a few holdouts, a few alcoves that are trying to hold on to hope. So you might see a few in hiding, usually in hidden cloisters of people who are trying to cling to hope, trying to restore faith, trying to restore civilization in whatever fashion that they can, care for refugees, care for orphans, care for those who have been affected. Of course, it's extremely hard for them because literally the entire world is against them. These may be former adherents of Cord who hold out that Cord can't have been responsible for this. This couldn't possibly have been him. But of course, for reasons we've already explained, they are hunted and reviled, and therefore they must keep that very secret. But in secret, they may manage guilds or underground resistance movements or orphanages or other such types of areas. But of course, those are the exception. Most of the people who haven't fully given to despair are either now turned to banditry or highway robbery, or have sided with, seeking, currying favor with the drow or whatever other powers that be. So in order to survive. So it ain't looking pretty, essentially. But that's my take there.
Excellent. I think that is a very good answer.
Cool.
That gives me some cool ideas.
Well, so full disclosure, that was remember when I said, "Oh, I've already got ideas for an adventure." It was that my character would have been from one of these cloisters, and on and on from there.
Well, I mean, this is something we do end up running. This is going to Oh yeah. Should we ever feel like doing it, this will be our campaign. This is what we're building right now. The world in which this is going to take place.
This is our session 0.
Essentially, basically session 0, for which there will may never be a session 1, but it's still fun to do.
You realize we're going to browbeat you until this becomes real.
Session 0 that takes 5 freaking sessions.
Once we have 300 people in our Patreon, we'll do session 1.
Oh Jesus!
If we hit 1 million, we'll make the movie.
We don't need you.
Roman, what card was that? Real fast.
Say again.
What card was that?
Oh, King of Clubs.
So many kings. Yeah. So Jack of Clubs is my final card. What was this place in the past, and how long ago was that? So this place in the past was, the northern edge of Faerun, Icewind Dale area, and obviously bleeding down into more of the continent proper. Now,
10 towns.
When it asks, 10 towns is wiped out. Like,
yeah.
So the area that we're dealing with is going to be south of the Betrayer's Maw.
Yeah.
Or it can go. I mean, we're talking here about a continent scale of effect. So I mean, if you wanted to go as far south, if you were to look at one of those maps and see, there are like the Kalimshan Desert and things like this, very, very far south from where we are. You can go in because all of Faerun, within just a few months of this happening, is going to be feeling some kind of an effect.
Yeah, this is
right, but we want to be careful. We got to watch for scope though. We don't want to do scope creep, because I mean, if we do like all of Faerun, that's really big, you guys.
It is.
So, yeah.
I just downloaded a map of it, and
I've got it.
I don't know what
on the screen.
90% of the places are.
Right, exactly.
I know what all these places are. Yeah. I'm a big old dork for this game.
So, that's great. And that's great.
I would ask for help in this case, because I actually have no idea.
I am going to recommend, for the sake of our session, we try to keep the scope under control. So I'm going to recommend that we stick to like the places more closely affected. So let's not go to the desert. That's not.
Yeah, I'm saying that one could if one wanted to. But what are you wanting help on exactly, Tim?
No, so like we were talking about like in the area, like obviously we're talking about like Luskin and everything kind of being destroyed, Waterdeep being heavily affected, but probably there's a lot of resources and stuff that we could potentially draw from, but like Waterdeep and its area being sort of like a central area of what remained, probably far enough away from the apocalypse where it wasn't like obliterated by the like they would have had hurricane force winds, but like not like toppling
the end of the world,
stone towers or anything like that.
Yeah.
I feel like you could probably go from like Baldur's Gate. South.
Makes
Baldur's
sense.
Gate would probably still have architecture standing.
Yeah,
I would say that makes sense.
Okay.
You're talking about like destruction of the environment, but most of the remnants of the city still remaining.
Yeah. So what we were talking about was Waterdeep down was in trouble, but Baldur's Gate a little bit further south. So I'm just like showing this on my screen share, so that if anyone's watching. So like Baldur's Gate area then. And what were we talking about? Like, so we were centuries after the event.
That's the scale we'll be operating on in the next phase of the game. Yes.
Okay. All right.
So we're kind of focusing on
How long ago was it that, and that's
I'd
what
say-
I'm establishing in my card.
I'm thinking about 2 years is kind of the span over which we're thinking. We're setting the initial stage of what's going to become
and
multiple.
the story will progress over centuries. So the
Yes.
initial
Correct, yeah.
stage is within years. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I think
I'm
that's good.
perfectly
Yeah, that's good.
happy putting a peg in that just to lock that
Yeah.
in. So anyway, area surrounding Baldur's Gate, and years within single digit years of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
nuclear winter has started.
Yeah, the Neverwinter is now a lot of winter.
Yes,
the perma winter. Neverwinter is now
instead of the
perma-winter.
never winter, it's the always winter. The ever winter. There we go.
Hey, there you go.
Neverwinter. Oh god, that's so good.
Yeah,
You fucking
there you
jinxed
go.
it. You've
You
ruined
know
it.
what? That's what the Drow are going to rename that city now. When they took
There
it
you go.
over, they renamed it from
Everwinter.
Neverwinter to Everwinter.
Yeah,
Excellent,
they're looking at the signs
excellent.
going, lol, LeMayo.
Or did they
scratch-
say
scratching out
did
the
they
end?
say lull or lull?
Lol.
Oh man.
Boo.
LOL, you mean lots of lol?
Yeah. Excellent.
I love it.
Excellent.
Okay. No,
Toast, you are next.
Well, sorry. So, Tim, did you?
Oh, yeah,
Did you
sorry.
feel like you answered your card?
Yeah, what was this place in the past? I mean, so we're using an existing
True enough.
thing, and how long ago was that? So we're talking, on the span of years. So what was it? It was Baldur's Gate, and we're establishing our time frame, which is going to be like 2-ish years after the apocalypse. Far enough south from the apocalypse itself. I think I'm good.
Okay.
Cool. Toast.
Okay. My last one is Queen of Diamonds. This is kind of retreading on ground again we've already talked about.
Yeah.
What is valued in this place? What is it known to have in excess?
But you can also use that as an opportunity to expand on any of that you're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, we're kind of talking about in the immediate aftermath, the things that are going to be valued the most are your ability to contribute to whatever efforts there are, be it either in your ability to raid, to steal, to get resources for yourself or for your group. There will also be value in people being able to help heal people who are injured or who are hurt. There'll be value in people's ability to jockey for position and be able to basically act as politicians to try and keep certain people safe or help fight off certain invasions or whatnot. I mean, the only things that are really going to have in excess after the events are a lot of carbon, a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere, a lot of snow, probably.
For now.
If there's carbon everywhere, that means the ability to make steel will be a whole lot easier.
Yeah, but if you don't have easy access to iron anymore.
Well, hey, remember all those groups that you said would survive just fine underground? All those dwarves?
Yeah, but again, it goes back again to what you're talking about the potential implications, right? Like if the Underdark gets flooded, then there goes their easy access to iron there. Yes, they could potentially find it in other areas, but then you're talking about restarting mines, which is going to take years.
Yeah, but there are a lot of mines that won't be affected by the magma, for example. So I'm not saying that it will be everywhere. I'm just saying that that's a cool opportunity in my mind.
True.
Is that suddenly anything that requires carbon to make, which is a surprisingly large number of things, even back then, there's opportunities to suddenly do things with those.
I agree, but then you're still also potentially talking about iron becoming more of a scarce resource, which, if it is, then the carbon isn't as
it becomes more of a
useful.
The iron side of things is more of a limiting factor than the carbon was.
Yeah, I mean, it probably already would have been, but now even more so.
I wonder if people learn how to forge things out of carbon. Like, I'm thinking now, like, like
Carbon
the
nanotube swords.
the Morgul blades from
I
Lord of the
wish.
Rings. You know, like these are like they're swords that they make them out of carbon, but the carbon is so brittle because of the nature of where it comes from that it breaks apart in your body and poisons you. Carbon poisoning. I want to say carbon.
Oh, is that a thing?
No.
No. But it's just,
I mean, I don't
the
know.
obsidian blades and stuff that like the
Actually, that's true.
where we were talking about the edge of the cataclysm, like forming a layer of obsidian essentially. So there's going to be a lot of easily accessible sharp.
It would only do that if there is magma present, right? Because I assume with the Sphere of Annihilation, it just destroys stuff. It doesn't actually it doesn't actually release energy along the edge of it. It's not going to galvanize the edge in that sense.
Okay.
It's just going to.
I think that's just a thing
stuff
that
out
we
of
were deciding
existence.
on then. Yeah.
But you do bring up a good point, because then if you are seeing super volcanic activity, there will be an influx of obsidian, right? Because it's created through cooling of magma. Fun fact, Muffin, because I know that you care about biology, carbon doesn't actually normally poison you in its own right. The reason that actually carbon nanotubes are poisonous is because typically they're too big for your white blood cells to actually consume and break down. So you end up dying because your white blood cells are constantly spewing poisons to try and break them down, and it can't.
Yeah.
So
I can see that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's an aspect of biology that I don't know anything about. So
because we made them, and I had a professor who constantly told me, you can eat all of your nanotubes and it won't kill you, but don't breathe them in because
that will
your lungs can't do anything with them.
Yeah.
Great.
Interesting.
Cool.
Great answers. Great opportunities come up from that, Toast.
To Muffin's point, like carbon is cool, but it's really useless on its own.
But we do live in a fantasy world here, so.
No, but even in the fantasy world, like, what are they going to do unless you can super pressure it and basically make it diamonds?
Hey, you know what? I've already got ideas.
I mean, you've got access to magic. Magic can probably make diamonds.
And you've got access to me, and I have all sorts of stupid ideas. That's great. Any other things you want to add on that, Toast?
No. Again, just a lot of carbon.
Just a lot of carbon and obsidian and everywhere.
So much carbon.
I mean, like the idea of obsidian, like I've got family in New Zealand, and I was listening to a podcast recently that was talking about like a lot of those island cultures using obsidian as tools, right, and weaponry and stuff like that, and the idea that this would be like a hyper effective weapon, and it would be prolific, like it would be easy to get, extraordinarily, it's brittle, but it's extremely sharp.
I had an anecdote from a really good history teacher from when I was in high school, and talked about the Spanish first contact with the Aztec people.
Okay.
Aztec or Mayan, one of the Central American people. They came in on ships, and they brought all these horses, and they brought with them European tactical efficiency of like cavalry and infantry and whatnot. And upon meeting the Aztecs, I mean, I'm sure at some point they used to have this weapon which effectively looked like a big paddle, and it had chunks of obsidian.
I've seen those.
Yep.
Oh,
around the side.
obsidian on it?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I forget what it's called, but yeah.
They were stone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up. But yeah,
they would. He kind of the way he told it was like they would see these things and see these paddles and just be like, "Well, we got swords and guns, like whatever. That's no big deal." Charge them, and suddenly they're lopping off the heads of their horses because the obsidian is so sharp.
That's incredible.
Here
they have shown it's so sharp because of the crystalline structure of the cooled magma that it has like surgical precision.
Yeah, it's like it's
in fact there are
the order of atoms.
Check the thread.
Yeah,
I posted one.
Singular.
There
atoms.
are actually places right now that sell obsidian scalpels for surgery because they're so much sharper than metal scalpels are, or they can be anyway.
Yeah, they can
Obsidian is
separate like cells with minimal damage because of how freaking sharp they are.
Yeah.
I had
I mean,
no idea.
that's super cool idea. How much obsidian would be present? I never even thought about that. And I mean, like people use them for mirrors and stuff too, in history,
Really?
and I mean all sorts of things. Yeah, it's super useful stuff when you're not in a high technology setting. All right, so the very last question from this sort of phase 1 of the game is going to be the Queen of Spades. It's going to be mine. It is, what is the greatest tragedy in this place's past? How is it remembered? I'm going to set up what becomes the past, the great tragedy that's happening that will be a big tragedy in the future. I mean,
of the maw.
all of this is a terrible tragedy, right? There's one other thing I really want to hit, and that is the ash. The ash that is being spewed out, because like again, I've imagined this semi-spherical hole, perfectly smooth semi-spherical hole in the ground, and I'm imagining that punctures the mantle in a variety of places. So you just have these just straight like squeeze a pimple, and
the mantle isn't perfectly smooth and even in its layers.
Oh,
I mean, that's sure what geology textbooks want you to believe, right?
Yeah,
the Earth is a perfect sphere, like a marble.
Yeah.
So fuck with the tectonic plates too, though. That's fun.
Oh, that's something I was also
there's no
thinking
doubt,
about on this, but that's something we
seismic
can start
activity all
delving
over the
into
planet.
later. But what I really want to hit on with this is the ash. So all of these pockets of magma just spewing out, literally like popping a pimple on your cheek or something, just of magma coming out. That releases so much ash. So I am imagining
about the ocean like running into the crater at the same time as well.
Yeah,
that immediate
steam,
and steam and everything. I mean, there's so many things that are going to happen as a result of this. But that ash is going to spew out, and it's going to make this immediate big cloud everywhere. But it's going to start falling everywhere, and I mean, it's going to fall. So, like in some places, there's this massive swath of land, and I'm imagining looking back at the map of Faerun. I'll pull up my map here again because I want y'all to see what I'm talking about here.
Now, this is when we fully model what the wind system in Faerun would look like, right? And how
don't tempt me. Do not tempt me.
Don't you fucking
and exactly how much it's gonna drop and precipitate over the different areas.
The spine of the world is gone, right? We've established that. So this whole block right here is just a wind tunnel, basically. So all that ash is going to come down here, and it's going to spread, and it's going to spread much further than anybody has any appreciation for if they see this thing coming.
100%.
Wouldn't it be continental? Like, wouldn't it be the entire half of the planet?
I mean, that's the thing. The entire continent of Faerun is going to sometimes experience what I'm calling ash falls.
Sure.
There will just be the same way that you'll just get snow or rain or something. Now there's also ash falls that are coming. And I'm going to say that in the area from Waterdeep, kind of up through all of this, that's where the ash fall is really bad. We're talking 3 feet of ash in a lot of places. And Muffin, everything is choked out and dead. But
correct me if I'm wrong. If you get rainfall at the same time as an ash fall, doesn't that cause wicked acid rain?
Well, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. 100%. And it also causes terrible mudslides.
Yeah.
And I mean, that stuff, you can't, if you're out walking in it and you'll just get stuck in it, it will harden and you'll be really fucked.
We have contemporary baby's first ashfall experience with the Mount St. Helens eruption in Washington. My mom, living in Stony Plain in Ontario, their vehicles were coated in ash from one eruption from the other side of the continent, right?
Yeah. This is going to be viewers, everywhere.
That's 5,000-ish kilometers, or roughly 3,000 miles. It's insane how far this stuff can travel.
Yeah, imagine it being nearly consistent. If, as Muffin says, it's pockets of magma just constantly erupting.
Mountain, not like a mantle blowing up.
Now, we have a little bit of a help here in that part of what I've envisioned with the deities fighting, part of that is too, the deities are using their power to try to keep that back as much as they can, but there's only so much they can do as their opposition grows stronger.
Right.
So I'm going to say that this 3 feet ash, goes as far south as like Waterdeep through the Star Mounts. Like all of this stuff is just basically, it's now called the Ashlands.
There you
and
go.
then everything south of Waterdeep down to Baldur's Gate and a little bit further down, like through Candlekeep. And everywhere has a little bit of ash every now and then. But especially from Waterdeep through Baldur's Gate, Candlekeep, all of this, they get regular ash falls.
Can we
and
call
those,
it the dead zone?
No, I'm calling it the Ashlands.
Fine.
So, meh.
This is not your card, Toast.
Because I'm the arbitrator of the card. But that is the effective problem of it. And actually, we could say maybe colloquially, there are people who do refer to it as the Deadlands. These are the Deadlands. This is the dead zone.
There's the dead zone.
Nothing can live up there. But we've also established that up here, there's a lot of obsidian for the really brave and foolhardy people to get to. Right. So there might then be a whole swath of people that are willing to traverse that dead zone with a proper, preparation to go collect that obsidian and bring it back for purposes. Yeah. There's all sorts of things that could be done with that.
Yeah.
So that's going to be my answer for the Queen of Spades. The greatest tragedy that kind of befalls us is like what's going to hit the entire planet is these ash falls that just make everything, just being outside sometimes is going to be incredibly dangerous, and life is just all the harder as a result of that.
It seemed harder in when we were doing Rime of the Frost Maiden or whatever. We're up in this like winter wonderland, and
that was nothing,
kind of fucking bleak, and it's so much worse and so much more pervasive now.
Yeah. So there are ash falls as far south as Baldur's Gate that make acid rain, mud flows, ash flows. Yeah. Cool. So that's my answer.
Cool.
And from that now, we have finished the first phase of the game. Now I'll stop my stream now. So obviously we've been recording for a while. It's up to y'all if we want to press any further, because we can still go. We don't have to finish the whole thing, but if we'd rather stop there.
Yeah, because the next phase looks like it could take just as long based on what I'm reading here.
Okay.
So what do you guys think?
I'm of maybe the impression that maybe we should kind of cut it here for this episode. Come back
a little bit, see
if we can go through 2 in the next one.
I'm just doing a real quick overview of the next phase. A lot of I think we may have gone a bit too deep on phase 1 because a lot of the questions in phase 2 kind of go over some of the stuff we've already brought up. I mean, we'll refine it obviously. But I do feel like there's a bit of retread that's going to happen. But not that it's a bad thing. It allows to refine.
Well, don't treat it as retread. We remember that. So, like, for example, one of the questions. So what we'll actually do in the next game is we're going to start drawing cards. And when someone draws a 5, we're not worried about suit anymore. We're worried about the first 5 that is drawn. You answer the first question for 5. And whoever draws the second for 5 answers that question.
Okay.
And on a 10, things happen. But so the first 5 question is, what are the stars like in our place? The sky, the weather. Obviously, we've answered some of that.
Right.
But you can, again, absolutely use these as opportunities to expand a little bit. And we can make this even better by saying, so we opened up on the first 1 to 2 years. For the start of the next phase, we'll say we're now 10 years after everything has happened. There has been time for things to solidify, some civilization to reassert itself, the wars to begin, they may be fully underway, whatever. So we'll have opportunities to expand on all of these.
And I'm perfectly happy, just putting it out there that, if one of us says something, I don't care how much I don't like it or disagree with it. If one of us says a thing, we're going with it, right?
I think that's fair.
If the next phase for sure, not a discussion.
Okay.
If this is a thing that you're putting forward, I don't really give a shit. I'm treating it as fact, and that's gonna be hey, you're throwing a thing out there, and we're all reacting to it. And I think that's going to be a fun.
Oh, we're
way
gonna
of
play yes
progressing.
and. Okay.
It's going to be a yes and.
Yeah.
100%.
I agree.
And it's going to
and
make
that's
for a
constructive.
dynamic and
Yeah.
really fun growth of.
I agree that. I agree.
Of a thing. So I'm kind of fucking stoked. That's gonna be really cool. So.
Yeah. And again, whoever
mind jumping in on everybody's things.
No.
That's. I
think we've all done it a little bit today because this has been a very collaborative thing.
It has.
But
so
I'm
that's the
willing
thing
to
to
say
remember
like, that could be where we get bogged down and being like, oh, the minutia. Why does that not work?
Well,
I don't fucking care. Let the next step we can decide that
it's a fantasy world. Let's not get hung up on it. Yeah,
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
now I do want to say though. So I had no I was not familiar with the ground itself before we started today's session.
Me neither.
So I wasn't sure what kind of system we were dealing with. Now it's clear to me now. This is a world building module, less than it is a role playing game. Nothing wrong with that. This is super fun. That's not a criticism. But of course, just to go back on on something you said, Muffin, earlier, which is we can't leave it at that. Once we create this world, we're not just going to stop there. Next, we got to build stories.
Well, that will be something that we can. I'm more than happy for us to pursue that when the time comes.
Wait. So now we're charting out our 10-book series.
That's what I'm talking about.
What happened to Maid Room after
calling it now, boy. We're calling it now. This is it. This is our world building exercise. Then in 2 weeks, our homework will be each of us have to write a novel in time for the next podcast set in our new world that we just built.
It's gonna be exciting.
Oh yeah.
So like I like that we have this, especially if there's something that we really want to talk about, like we can go in deep on the podcast. But if we don't have something deep that we want to talk about, like it's kind of a mini session because we are really keeping these like 1-2 hour absolute fucking max because you East Coasters, that's a long time. It's a late night, right? So I like that these are going to be really like tight, self-contained, and it seems like you guys are very experienced with these RPG tabletop things where I think
you're doing fine. Don't sell yourself short.
I know I'm doing fine, but I'm saying that you guys will be really good at keeping this thing like nice and tight and narrow. I don't think I'll have a problem keeping up.
I think we'll be fine. Yeah.
And just remember,
really
we don't need to worry about keeping it nice and tight. You know, the whole point of this is that we're building a world. So
100%.
True.
Perfect.
But I do want to say this though. I liked the roundtable format. I like that everyone got a chance to contribute in sequence.
Yep.
You know, and of course we chimed in and had stuff to say. But that's what I really like about this system too, is that everyone gets to contribute, and that is important when doing collaborative work like this because it's easy for one. I do this myself all the time. Like I can take over sometimes, and I know that about myself. So it's good to have a system in place.
No.
I know my faults. Don't worry.
But so I'll say then it's important to remember then about this game too that, you know, again, whoever drew the card, they are the ones who decide what happens. And they are if somebody starts to chime, they can say, actually, I already know what I want to say on this.
Yep.
And so I don't want discussion on this. Here's the answer.
Yeah.
Or you can say, well, actually, I'm not really sure the direction this should go. So please give me feedback. Or you can just let everyone chime in, whatever. But you are the arbiter of your card.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, we can pause the game here.
Toast, you had something to say?
No, I was just going to say with that, I think that's a good place for us to pause at least this exercise for now. This has been episode 8 of the Isolation Squadcast. Let us know what you guys think. If you think this is interesting enough to continue on in this kind of format, I certainly found it interesting. And just to, help Tim out there, Tim, I do hope you know that I don't actually know a lot about D&D either. I just Google stuff and try and
Google a lot of things as well. Yes, but
and try and think of logical the progression of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all just big fucking nerds. Who cares? But from Muffin, Roman, Tim, and myself, take it easy, folks, and we'll see you next week, I guess. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We will see you next week.
Yeah.
I miss you already.
Bye.
Go fuck yourself.
Bye, guys.